Do you actually know what your children's coaches are doing behind closed doors? It was a quiet town where trust was a currency, and the people who held it were seen as pillars of the community. Parents turned to coaches, teachers, mentors, those people who would help their children grow and stay safe. But when that confidence is betrayed in ways nobody could have predicted, what follows? When the very persons meant to defend innocence start to design its destruction. Paige Huck's narrative is one of a cheerleading coach whose actions would leave a community reeling and a school system searching for solutions. A tale of treachery so great that it makes us wonder how such atrocities may transpire right in front of us. Welcome to True Crime Theatre HQ. For more stories like this, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a case that demands to be heard. And don't forget to share this with your friends, because some stories need to be told. In the heart of Southeast Ohio stood River Valley High School, a place that embodied the essence of small-town life. It was a school where Friday night football games brought the community together, where cheerleaders rallied the crowd with infectious energy, and where parents felt a sense of pride watching their children thrive. It was a place where trust wasn't just given, it was expected. Paige Huck was one of those trusted figures. As a cheerleading coach and substitute teacher, she wasn't just a familiar face, she was a role model. Parents saw her as someone who could guide their children, someone who could inspire them to be their best. Alongside her husband Matthew, the school's wrestling coach, the Hucks were fixtures in the community, their lives intertwined with the hopes and dreams of the students they mentored. But trust can be a dangerous thing. It can blind us to the truth, make us overlook the cracks in the foundation. And at River Valley High, those cracks were growing wider by the day. Behind the smiles, the pep rallies, and the camaraderie, there were whispers. It began innocently enough, or so it seemed. Paige Huck, the cheerleading coach who was always around, always involved, started to blur the lines. Students noticed her behavior, flirting that felt too familiar, comments that crossed the line from playful to inappropriate. At first, it was easy to dismiss. After all, she was a trusted adult, someone who had earned her place in their lives. But trust can be a powerful weapon in the wrong hands. The whispers grew louder. Paige wasn't just crossing boundaries, she was obliterating them. The allegations that surfaced painted a chilling picture of manipulation and control. She didn't just groom her victims, she created an environment where abuse became routine, where the unthinkable was normalized. One victim, just 13 years old, described how it began. A ride home from a wrestling meet, a van filled with students, and a moment that would forever change his life. Paige Huck didn't just abuse her position of power, she exploited it in ways that defy comprehension. For another victim, the abuse wasn't a one-time event. It was a pattern, repeated over and over again, 50 times, 60 times. Encounters that spanned years, leaving scars that would never fully heal. And when Paige needed to cover her tracks, she turned to manipulation. She instructed one victim to buy a burner phone, a tool to keep their communication hidden, to ensure her secrets stayed buried. But Paige wasn't acting alone. Her husband, Matthew Huck, wasn't just a bystander. Allegations suggest he was complicit, watching as the abuse unfolded, standing by as his wife shattered the lives of the students they were supposed to protect. Together, they created a web of deceit and exploitation that ensnared their victims, leaving them trapped in a nightmare they couldn't escape. The question wasn't just how this could happen, but how it could happen for so long. How did no one see it? How did no one stop it? And how many lives were forever changed before the truth finally came to light? The warnings were there, but no one listened. The first cracks in the story appeared when a lone cheerleader stepped forward, her voice trembling with the weight of what she had seen and felt. She went to the principal armed with courage, hoping the truth would matter, that someone in authority would take action. But instead of protection or concern, her words were met with indifference. There was no investigation, no follow-up, just silence. Her concerns never made it into any official reports, as if they were erased before they had a chance to be acknowledged. For students, this was a harrowing revelation. If a principal wouldn't take a stand, what hope did they have? Slowly but surely, fear took over. Fear of speaking out, fear of being ignored, fear of retaliation. The one place where they should have felt safe, their school, had betrayed them. Meanwhile, the Hucks tightened their grip. Paige didn't just groom her victims. She manipulated the system itself, creating an environment that shielded her and allowed her actions to escalate. Hotel lock-ins, trips that blurred the boundaries of professionalism, and wrestling team gatherings weren't just team-building exercises. They were carefully crafted opportunities for control. Stories began to emerge of Paige and Matthew Huck playing hardcore pornography for students at these events, breaking barriers that no teacher or coach should ever dare approach. And when students tried to fight back, their bravery was met with cruelty. Victims who spoke up became targets. Bullying, harassment, and public shaming quickly followed their attempts to expose the truth. Their peers turned against them, influenced by whispers of denial and the Hucks' seemingly untouchable status in the school. The message was clear: step out of line and you'd pay the price. What made it all the more devastating was the mounting silence from those who were supposed to protect them. Teachers, administrators, mentors, they all seemed unwilling, or worse, uninterested in confronting what was happening right under their noses. The system didn't just fail, it refused to engage. And for the Hucks, this passivity acted as a shield, wrapping them in a cocoon of untouchability that left their victims feeling utterly powerless. The question that echoes beyond River Valley High School is this: who holds more blame? The predators, or those who allowed them the freedom to flourish? How many warnings are enough before change is forced, before inaction itself becomes complicity? These answers remain hauntingly unresolved. The years of silence had been suffocating, but for the victims who had endured Paige Huck's reign of manipulation and abuse, it was time to be heard. One by one, they stepped forward, their voices breaking through the walls of fear and shame that had kept them hidden for so long. Their courage wasn't just a rebellion against the pain they had suffered. It was a demand for truth, for accountability, for justice. The lawsuits followed swiftly, sending shockwaves through the close-knit community of Gallia County. No longer could anyone hide behind claims of ignorance. The details that emerged were devastating. Stories of stolen innocence, of broken trust, of lives forever altered by the actions of someone who was supposed to protect them. For Paige Huck, the truth could no longer be evaded. Courtrooms became the stage where years of deceit unraveled. With cameras flashing and the eyes of the community upon her, Paige admitted to her crimes. 2 counts of unlawful sexual conduct with a minor, 2 counts of sexual battery. Confessions that finally gave words to the pain her victims had carried in silence. "This was the worst mistake of my life," she said. But for those who sat in the courtroom, it was far more than a mistake. It was a choice, one that left deep, unhealable scars on those she preyed upon. These proceedings, though harrowing, began to peel back the layers of a story that had remained hidden for far too long. The community, once so quick to close its eyes, now faced the weight of its complicity. Parents wrestled with how this could have gone unnoticed. Students, now adults, replayed moments from their high school years with the haunting realization of what had been happening right in front of them. For the victims, justice came not through punishment alone, but in being believed, in reclaiming their narratives and forcing the world to confront the truth they had carried in silence. The legal system had spoken, and while it could never erase the years of pain, it marked the beginning of a reckoning for River Valley High School and for all who had ignored the signs. The turning point was not just about Paige Huck's sentencing. It was about the courage of those who refused to stay quiet. Their bravery cracked the carefully constructed lie, exposing the truth and demanding a change that could no longer be denied. The story could have ended with Paige Huck's sentencing, but justice rarely ties itself up so neatly. The shadows lingering in this case pointed to someone else, someone who had not just stood idly by, but may have been a partner in her crimes. Matthew Huck, Paige's ex-husband and once a respected wrestling coach, was now at the center of his own legal storm. Prosecutors painted a chilling picture of complicity. They alleged that Matthew didn't just ignore Paige's abuse, he enabled it. Evidence suggested a shared depravity, a disturbing partnership that targeted the most vulnerable among them, teenagers who never stood a chance against the authority and trust the Hucks exploited. Paige, now sitting behind bars, made a move that shocked the community once again. She struck a deal, agreeing to testify against the husband she once stood beside. For her, it was a chance to shave years off her own sentence. For prosecutors, it was an opportunity to strengthen their case against Matthew, to hold him accountable for his own alleged crimes. The legal strategy was calculated. Many of Matthew's charges were set aside temporarily to focus on one pivotal case, a single charge of rape that could set the tone for future proceedings. The weight of Paige's testimony loomed large, and the evidence against him began to mount. For the victims and their families, this development was yet another chapter in an agonizing and unrelenting fight for justice. The trial was no longer just about individual harm or accountability. It was about exposing a pattern of abuse, about sending a clear message that even those who abet such horrors will not escape the reach of the law. But questions lingered. Could Paige's words be trusted, given her own guilty pleas and calculated plea deal? How far did Matthew's complicity truly go? And most haunting of all, how many lives had been shattered in ways that might never fully come to light? This wasn't just a tale of one couple's crimes. It was a stark reminder that the protection of children demands vigilance from everyone, parents, schools, communities alike. It was a wake-up call, echoing far beyond River Valley High School, that silence and inaction are the accomplices every predator relies on. The road ahead remained uncertain for Matthew Huck, but one thing was painfully clear. The pursuit of justice doesn't end with one conviction. It must pull at every thread, expose every truth, and ensure that those responsible, whether through action or complicity, are held to account. Only then can healing truly begin. The school district, now thrust into the spotlight for its failure to protect its students, faces a reckoning of its own. Accusations of gross negligence loom large, with a federal lawsuit painting a damning picture of indifference and missteps. Calls for accountability grow louder as community members demand answers, and perhaps more importantly, systemic change. Empty hallways in River Valley High School now serve as a haunting reminder of the trust that was shattered, and the lives that could have been saved had someone acted sooner. For the victims, the path forward is far more complicated. Paige Huck's confession brought some semblance of validation for those whose voices went unheard for so long. For a few, it marked the beginning of a healing process, a small yet significant step toward closure. But for others, justice still feels incomplete. With Matthew Huck's trial looming, they are left to relive memories they have tried desperately to forget, waiting for the day when the full truth might finally come to light. Their healing takes many forms. Some have sought solace in sharing their stories, reclaiming control of their narratives, and refusing to be silenced any longer. Others struggle quietly, navigating a life forever altered by what happened to them. The weight of years spent in silence is heavy, and the road ahead, though paved with courage, remains uncertain. The Hucks case is no longer just a story about individuals. It is a cautionary tale for every community about the costs of complacency, the dangers of blind trust, and the devastating consequences of ignoring those who dare to speak out. The questions linger like a shadow over Gallia County. How many lives could have been spared if someone had listened? How many opportunities were lost to confront the truth before it became too late? And yet, as the town tries to pick up the pieces, small glimmers of hope can be found. The brave voices of the victims have sparked larger conversations about how schools, communities, and systems can and must do better. Their courage ensures that what happened at River Valley High cannot and will not be forgotten. Justice moves slowly, and healing even slower. But in the end, the Hucks victims have shown that silence does not have to be permanent. From their pain, the community faces its greatest challenge, not just to hold those at fault accountable, but to ensure that something like this can never happen again. Trust is a fragile bond, and when broken, its shards can cut deep. Paige Huck was not just a cheerleading coach or a teacher. She was a predator hiding in plain sight. For years, she lived a double life, manipulating her way into positions of power and systematically abusing that trust to shatter the lives of innocent teenagers. Her crimes have left deep scars, not only on her victims, but on an entire community forced to confront its own complicity in the silence. But the story is not finished. Paige may now sit behind prison bars, but her testimony carries the potential to unveil even darker truths about the man she once called her husband. Will her words bring justice, or only deepen the wounds left behind? And what of the school district that turned away from repeated warnings? For too long, those entrusted to protect allowed harm to persist. Now the walls of River Valley High School echo with demands not just for answers, but for accountability. If this story has shaken you, make your voice heard. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated as we unravel the trial of Matthew Huck and the lawsuits against the school district. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Should those who turned a blind eye be held accountable? Justice may not rewrite what has been done, but it offers a chance to reshape what's to come. It's only through facing these stories that we start to prevent them.